Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Woo! Energy. Just want to make sure we're not falling asleep right from the start. You know, you have, I don't know, an hour or so to fall asleep, but now we're here. So whenever, Bellmaster, you are ready, we can begin. We can begin with 3 sounds of the bell. Does everyone hear me when I speak like this? Yes. In the back row too? Yes. Okay, then I'll try it without. I like to use my hands to talk too. Dear respected Thay, dear sisters and dear brothers, I really enjoyed listening to this beautiful, warm and full sound of the bell, and it really sounded for a long time, and I didn't want to interrupt it, seeing that everybody came back to themselves and to your island within. But as adorable as it is, as I look around and I see like peace, quiet in your eyes, and just getting a sense of mindfulness here, calm minds. Also I sense maybe a bit of anticipation and openness, curiosity, all wholesome seeds, so helpful and fruitful for our spiritual practice. I also know how fragile that is, and how easily we can be carried away, just like this, with one word or one little thing. Now, how would you feel if I call you up and invite you to come here and sing a song for everyone? Probably my heart would race and pound and say, what? Why me? And all the peace, all the quiet is gone. Or you receive a text message and you don't show it to everyone, but you look at it, and your friend that you haven't seen since you came to the monastery says like, I hate you. Where are you? You don't call. You don't do nothing. Like, and the quiet is gone and you feel like sadness or anger coming up. So it doesn't need much for strong emotions to visit us and to take us and carry us away, sweep us away. So powerful that they just grab us and do what they want. And that's why in Buddhist terminology we call strong emotions also the tiger within. And a part of our practice is to tame the tiger, this tiger of strong emotions inside of us. Like in a circus, like a tiger tamer. And to know how to play with that, how to use it, how to engage and practice with strong emotions in whatever directions they go. Is it because you should sing a song, because you're super happy, or you're super angry? Strong emotions are strong emotions. If they take us and we cannot control them, they're not in our hands anymore, then it doesn't matter if they're happy, strong emotions, or sad, strong emotions. If you hold a glass of beautiful, fragrant tea, let's say a gallon, in your right hand, and in your left hand you hold a gallon of, let's say, something very dirty. I don't want to say anything dirty, but you imagine something very dirty and disgusting. So now you hold it in front of you. And the longer you hold it, the heavier it gets. And it doesn't really matter if this is a disgusting thing or if this is a beautiful thing. Your arms grow tired and it becomes unbearable and you have to drop it. So sooner or later, nothing of both is any desirable. Although we always want to keep happiness as long as possible, and we become sad if it fades away, can't wait for another chance of happiness, or looking for it. And if we experience something unpleasant, we just want to get rid of it as soon as possible and drop it. Not seeing that if we would have, because it's so unbearable and heavy, not seeing in that moment that if we would hold a gallon of fragrant tea, it would just be as heavy as that happiness. So that tiger seems to have power over us. But I don't really believe that. I think there must have been a moment when I allowed the tiger to take me over. And I have to really come back and become present, not looking like in a wide scale of time, but really narrowing it down moment by moment to see when did I give permission to that strong emotion? When did that strong emotion appear? When did it spark? And how did I react and respond to it? And that's also a good thing. Did I react or did I respond? If I'm able to take some time when I experience something shocking, displeasing, super happy, am I just following it right away? Or am I looking at it? So I believe it is up to us. There is a chance, we have a chance to allow that tiger to come inside of us. And to give you an image, if you want to close your eyes and imagine you're a satellite up there in the sky and you are looking at our planet Earth. And now you zoom in and come closer and closer, and this round planet Earth becomes bigger and bigger, and you zoom in into one of the big oceans we have. And all these continents disappear and there's only blue, only ocean, and you come closer. And there's a little dot appearing in the middle, but you zoom further and this little dot is very slowly coming closer, but you don't really know what that dot is. And as you zoom and continue to zoom, you see this masses of ocean. And as you come closer and zoom in, you see, oh, it's a ship. But you continue to zoom. You see it's a ship on the wide ocean. And as you continue to zoom, you see it's actually a huge ship. Maybe one of these cargo things, like with, I don't know, hundreds or 1,000 of containers, which when you stand in front of it, like is overwhelmingly big. But there it's just like a little thing in the big ocean. Now you see this seemingly little ship is surrounded by so much water, but it doesn't sink. This ship only sinks if the water around it gets inside of it and weighs it down. And this is just the same with us and strong emotions. Strong emotions are around us, but they're only allowed to weigh us down and to carry us away if we open the gates or we have a leak and the water, that emotion, that suffering comes inside of us. And then it weighs us down and then we lose control. You can open your eyes again if you are still closed, but you can also keep them closed. That's why one of our practices is to guard our senses, to selectively water seeds in us, and to nourish ourselves with seeds that are wholesome, like compassion, peace, happiness, to foster freedom, to foster equanimity, all these aspects that give us space to look at things without immediately reacting and being carried away by them. And you have probably seen the image of the consciousness. I will illustrate it again, because we can never have enough of it. This is our consciousness. We have the store consciousness here. This is this side. And we have the mind consciousness on the other side. Within the mind consciousness, we have 5 more consciousnesses, or 6, let me count. The ears, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind. Make 6. And these sense organs are the gates, are the windows to our inside. This is where we perceive the world that is outside of us, that is apparently outside of us. Now, if we have an impulse coming from the outside, like me asking you to step in front and sing a song, or your friend texting you a heavy message, or any other impulse, they come through one or more or all of your doors that go right into your consciousness. And they go into the store consciousness. and water one specific seed there. That has been dormant, but that has been there. And as you know, all of the seeds are stored. That's what we call the store, in the store consciousness. So now, having this seed being watered by an impulse allowed by us to come into our consciousness, watering this seed, this goes back and becomes sprouts and becomes a seed, something in our mind, like being nervous, being angry, being happy, being sad. And then we have to deal with that. In our practice, there's always one seed we would like to have watered. Also, exactly with our 6 sense organs. You see, and this is not only eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, like touch and mind, but mind too, like what I think and how I nourish myself. We know the 4 nutriments are edible food, so it's important what we eat, how we nourish ourselves, but also sense impressions, volition and consciousness. So what we allow in, what we invite in, water seed inside. And we as practitioners, we are encouraged, or it's our sheer joy and delight. That's why we are on this path, to water these wholesome seeds, to become whole, I'd say. Not only happy. This is a side effect of the path, freedom, but to become a whole human being, to become a human being. So, mindfulness, we try to water all the time by mindful breathing. Here at Deer Park, you know it. We're practicing mindfulness from morning to evening. Even if we walk from sitting meditation to breakfast, we are encouraged to practice, in a way, walking meditation. And if there's mindfulness, mindfulness will attach itself like a virus to that seed that has been watered too. Let's say it's an unpleasant seed, and helps that seed to not lose ourselves. So this seed cannot occupy our complete mind and give us no chance, but grab us just like a tiger does and shake us around and maybe kill us. But the seed of mindfulness says, oh, I notice I have a thought that I'm very angry or that I'm very nervous. And that alone takes a lot of power of that first seed, of that first emotion, and doesn't allow it to take over and leak water into the whole ship so that it would sink. Thay often told us a story of his life, and he also wrote it in books, so some of you might know it, describing a situation like that. He was many years ago in his hermitage in France, and he decided to go on a walk because it's a beautiful countryside and a forest nearby, so he walked in the forest, getting far and far away from home when he realized it's getting darker and a storm is building up. And his seed of mindfulness told him, oh, I notice there's a storm coming up. And the next thing he noticed is, oh, the windows of my study are all open. So if it's going to storm and rain, it's going to be probably like storm and rain into my study. I better go back and close the windows. And you see, in these windows are the metaphor for our 6 sense organs, right? So Thay walked back and it became darker and it started to rain, And Thay mindfully walked a little bit faster back and came home, but not in time. So when he came up into his study, he saw that, and you know that Thay wrote many books and he was a poet, so there were a lot of sheets of paper everywhere on his desk, in the shelves, that they were all over the place, that the storm, the wind blew into his study and wreaked havoc. And the rain was coming in, so some of these papers, the carpet was wet. It was wet and it was cold. And he thought, oh my God, like there was this strong emotion. There was this overwhelming feeling of sadness, of despair. Look what I find here. Luckily, Thay, who teaches us, has the seed of mindfulness on always. So he knew what to do in this moment is not to panic and to run around like a chicken and pick up all the papers. But he said, what I need to do, I have to close my windows so that not more damage can be done here. And that's a very beautiful thing if you put it in context with strong emotions and our senses. The first thing we want to do is to close that windows and not allow more of it to come in, to sink the ship. So he closed all the windows, and then he looked around and saw what was there. But his emotion was still so strong that he was not able to start picking it up, and he said, I have to first take care of myself. I'm so shaken, I'm so sad. I don't know how much damage is done, if some of my manuscripts, papers are still here, can be saved, if I'll remember, if the ink is washed out. And because it was cold in the room, he went to his fireplace and he kindled a fire, so the room could get a little bit warmer. And then he left to change his clothes because he was also soaking wet. He changed his clothes and he made himself tea, put on hot water, and came back to the room with new robes and a hot tea and sat in front of the fireplace with a cup of tea in his hand and the chaos in his back, just staring into the fire, warming his body and breathing, drinking tea, warming his body from the outside and from the inside, and allowing this nutriment into his being. After a while, he felt better. He felt warm. He felt more calm. And that's when he said, now I'm ready. I'm ready to stand up and pick up all the papers, put them back on the desk where they belong, and see what I can do, what else needs to be done, what has been fallen down, like a vase of flowers maybe. And got his study again in the state that he needs for him to have this inspiration to write, and where he feels at home, to build a home again. Let us listen to one sound of the bell and let that image of Thay in his study sink in, and let us see ourselves in a situation like that, where we can just close our windows in a difficult situation, maybe where we have done it during our stay here or before, where we were able to see that we would first have to take care of ourselves before we react or respond to that situation, where we felt change happening, transformation happening. and then responded skillfully. So no damage was done. Even more the opposite, that we could do and build a home for us, maybe another person, for that situation. This bell is so beautiful. Such a beautiful sound. And it's kind of the same with any emotion. If we are able to listen to it and be within breathing, paying attention to our breath until the end, as we say in some guided meditations, I'm following my in-breath from the beginning to the end, not losing it, not allowing something else to take over, to take control, but my attention is here. I'm present for myself, for my in-breath, for my out-breath, for the sound of the bell, for my suffering, my happiness, from the moment it arises till the moment it fades. Now this sounds everything very beautiful and kind of easy, but we also know that when you're in that moment and when I call you up, would you? And sing a song for us? It's not that easy, and I won't. Because we are too involved. And this seed, we have a basic vibe or frequency of mindfulness. And if nothing happens, we can keep it at 20, 30, 50%. It's just enough to follow our breathing. But if a seed becomes a monster seed, like an overwhelming seed, then this might not be enough, and we have to generate more mindfulness, more attention, or focus our attention better on that part, what is happening right now. And this can be a mental formation where we say, I have a thought that I'm really angry, so I really need my whole attention with my anger before I blast something out. Or you feel it in your body. When I ask you again to come here and sing a song, you feel your heart pounding right away. So I want my attention to my heart and saying, it's okay, he won't do it, he won't do it. And if he does it, I just shake my hand. You're safe. We need to know we have a home, like Thay in his study, that our home is safe, that it's warm, that we are warm inside, that our world is okay. So in that case, we have to increase also the size of our mindfulness seed, that they can take care of each other. And the way we do it is, and you have heard this, the first important thing is to deal with strong emotions, is to recognize them. To say, I know there is a strong emotion inside of me. However it came in. It doesn't matter in that moment. That would be the second arrow when we say, how did it come in? Who told me something or asked me or texted me that this seed was watered? It is her fault, his fault. And projecting the seed that we are nurturing with our attention to somebody else because they have said something. Watering the seed in our dormant store consciousness. Ignoring that we have allowed that seed through our six senses to penetrate inside of us, like opening the window of our study during a storm and say, come in rain, come in storm, and then complain about the weather. So recognizing is the first step. And I want to also bring it on board. On board literally, like on board of our ship. So we see it and remember it. Recognize. Thay speaks and has a metaphor for taking care of strong emotions, using the example of a mother taking care of her crying baby, of a suffering child. And not everybody can relate to that because they have a disturbing relationship with their mother or parents. And it's just a metaphor. So please try, even if your relationship with your mother is different than everything else but caring and being seen, like recognized when you were suffering, then just pay attention to the content and to the spirit of that teaching of Thay. It doesn't matter, the words really don't matter, and the allegory is only there to water a seed in our store consciousness of insight. So recognizing our strong emotions in regard to our mother would be, imagine the mother is, I don't want to be stereotypical, but let's say in the kitchen or in the study and is writing a book. The mother is in the study and is writing a book. And it hears her baby crying in the other room. Right? So it comes to her ear. Now that's a moment where if we hear that something unpleasant, like a cry of a baby is not something like, it doesn't say, Mom! But it goes like, Wah! That she, I don't know, turns on the radio so she wouldn't hear the baby. So she doesn't try to ignore the baby, what we often do, or cover it up with another sense impression to not hear it and say, maybe it will go away by itself. But no, we say there is something happening that needs my attention. So mother hears crying baby. So what now? As a mother, and that's why the allegory is so beautiful, as a mother, she wouldn't hesitate, but she would go over to that other room, and let's say the baby's in a cradle, and the baby is, because it's a vulnerable, fragile little thing that cannot help itself, that needs the help of somebody else, like a suffering seed, like a strong emotion that cannot take care of itself but needs our attention, needs our mindfulness to hold it. And that's what mother does. Mother goes to the other room and holds crying baby. And we call this, in a spiritual context, to embrace our suffering, to embrace our strong emotion. And that's probably the most difficult part of transforming a strong emotion, because this is the part where it's really painful, where it's really raw, where it's really direct, immediate, and that moment where we don't see where we are on the brink of being taken by that tiger and carried away and losing ourselves. How do we practice here? We do practice, but we also know it's not easy. Last week in class we talked about air, the elements, and we figured that air is a mean to transport emotions, thoughts, energy, and can become a wind. And we saw ourselves as a tree, and we said if there is no tree, if we are empty of ourselves, these emotions and these thoughts cannot hit us, because a wind needs always an object. But if the object declares that it's empty, it is not corrupt. Thay also teaches us to be a tree while we're having a strong emotion, while this strong emotion is so raw and so powerful. So when we feel like, I cannot bear this, this is really a lot, see the strong emotion as a storm, just as he experienced it. And if you look at the storm, if you look at the top of the tree, you see how it is swaying wildly, and maybe some branches are breaking and flying, and leaves are just like his study, with all these leaves, and the water is coming in and it's doing damage. And you go down and you see the trunk is anchored with the roots, and it's very solid, and you don't see any signs of the storm down here. So while experiencing a strong emotion, maybe with our seed of mindfulness recognizing, I'm on the brink of being carried away, it is time to increase and to water the seed of mindfulness, to make it bigger and to be ready for the storm, to weather the storm. So we don't want to be on the level of our head if we are the tree, and being swayed and carried, and like the tiger shakes us around. We don't want to be at our heart level, where we receive emotions and feel the emotions. We want to be and bring our attention to our trunk, which is rooted stably in the earth. And our trunk is right here, where we hold our hands when we are breathing in and out. So we want to bring our whole attention away from our head and our heart, and bring our whole attention to our belly, and following our in-breath as we did with a bell, from the beginning to the end, following our out-breath from the beginning to the end. This is Thay kindling a fire, changing his robes, making a tea, and sitting with that disaster behind him in the same room, sitting in front of the fireplace and taking care of himself first. Saying, if I want to clean up this mess, I cannot be a mess myself. I have to be stable, and I have to be calm, and I have to know what I'm doing. And I have not to be carried away by an energy that is doing me harm. So that's what we do. And I think this is a beautiful tool, because that very moment When the mother comes into the room and sees the baby crying, this can be a very overwhelming moment for a mother, and she says, "Oh my God, my dearest baby, and it's crying. What shall I do?" And maybe she runs around. She calls her mother-in-law. She calls her husband at work. She runs away. This is the moment where we have to be present. This is the moment where faith in our practice grows, because there is empowerment. There is that seed of healing and facing and taming the tiger. Go down to your trunk and have that image in mind of that tree when something shakes you. See how shaky you are in your head and in your heart, and how stable you are down here. Let's hear another sound of the bell and everybody goes back to their trunk. I like that. You can hold your hand an inch below your navel and just feel it, the tummy rising and falling as you breathe in and out, and follow your in-breath from the beginning to the end, and your out-breath from the beginning to the end, just to train ourselves in a situation that is harmless. And that's a good point too, that we train ourselves to come back to our trunk in situations that are easy or middleweight, lightweight and middleweight. So when they're heavyweight, we know, I've done this before, I have faith that this works. And listen to this sound of the bell from the beginning to the end. Allow me to say, and I just observed this within myself now, that when the sound fades away and is nearly gone, but is still there, we tend to shift our attention from it. We say, it's okay, I've listened to it, it's nearly gone, it's nearly done. I can be somewhere else now again, like here with the beautiful this, or with the beautiful that. And this happens. I've just been sick last week, and after a few days it's getting better, and I really want to get out, but I know that it's not the right time yet, but I'm getting out because I think it's enough. But the message is it's not enough. We need to listen to our sickness, to our suffering, to the sound of the bell, to our in-breath from the beginning to the end. It's like when you're a guest in somebody's house and they invited you for dinner and now the dessert comes. And before the dessert they say, okay then, I need to go to sleep. Have a good, thanks for coming. Come back when you have less time, my daddy always jokes. And invite them out before they had their dinner, their dessert, you know. So we really need to go from the beginning to the end, to have the full meal, to have the full transformation, to have the full liberation, and because there will be a residue in us saying there's something still there. I'm not really done. And we know it. Just pay attention to that. The next step is to look deeply. And I will make eyes here. Look deeply. While we are holding this strong emotion, that suffering, that breath, that sound of the bell, that sickness, we look deeply and see, where did it come from? Like the Four Noble Truths say, there is suffering, and it's okay. We know it's a truth, it's a noble truth. And there's a cause for that suffering, which is the second noble truth. So in here, we are investigating that cause of the suffering. Related to the mother too investigates causes of crying baby. And that could be, you see now, she came in, she heard it crying, she came into the room, she picked it up, she held it and embraced it and maybe rocked it and stayed with it. Her whole attention was with the baby, maybe still desperate, still raw, still painful, as we said, as it can be. But she's there, and she stays there. She doesn't drop it, she doesn't run away. And then she thinks, what is it, baby, what you need? What is it, what I am failed to offer? What is missing here? And investigating means looking into different things, looking deeply into that suffering, into that what is present here, and maybe, and hopefully, seeing the causes of it. So I want to see, in case of the baby, is the window open, and is there a storm outside, and it's blowing in and raining in, and it's cold, so the baby feels uncomfortable? Is it that there's a construction site outside of the room and they're making a lot of noise, which woke the baby up? Is it simply hungry? Are the diapers full? So why is it crying? We're investigating it. And as we go and investigate it, and we see, is it this? No, it is not that. What could it be? Could it be this? No, it is not that. With this acceptance, embrace, generating kind of a peace and nesting, becoming calm first, we are able, without strong emotions, to look deeply, like we say in a clear, calm lake. We are able to look down to the ground and see the ground there. So that here the same, we can look deeply into ourselves and see the cause of that strong emotion. And that will allow transformation. Healing. And finally, guess what? Liberation. Because you rid yourself of a tiger who wanted to get hold of you, who made you suffer, who shook you, and you allowed it. But here, you saw the causes of it. You can close your windows. You can take care of yourself. You can recognize, embrace, and look deeply. And here you can transform. So when the mother sees and finds the reason for the baby crying, how would we call this? Mother changes diapers. And the baby stops crying. She knows what to do. She knows what to do. She does it, and she ends that cycle, that crying. And we do just the same. And it feels good to have fresh diapers on you, doesn't it? Anybody remembers? Now this can be a very difficult practice when we don't train ourselves with these lightweight, middleweight situations, or daily, if we don't remember or if we just enjoy the good times and we don't plant these seeds in good times. So when the bad times come, we might not be there yet to practice all of these steps. But we also say that you chop wood for the winter, not in the winter when it's cold and wet, but you chop it in the summer when it's dry and when there's plenty. So the same is true with our happiness and suffering. We take care of our suffering while we're happy. And then when we suffer, we are ready. We are there. And we have means to take care of our suffering. So for myself, when I see there's something coming up, wanting to take me over, and is very strong, and I may be able to recognize it, but I just can't get down there yet. I have developed my own way as a first step. I take this as a second step, and I want to introduce you too. Maybe you will benefit also from a half step. It's like waking up the bell before a full sound, just waking up and saying, I'll prepare you. You forgot to chop wood in the summer, but I have still like a bundle here, a little bundle that brings you like you're okay for a couple of hours. And I do this. I swirl. Like the tiger, he roars, and I swirl back. So that is a swirl. Funny. What is that? S stands for settling. So I'm aware enough as a practitioner, I know like here's something happening which is pretty heavy, which is pretty overwhelming, which is pretty much like I'm on the brink to be washed away. So I want to let settle anything unsettling me right now. And that's easy. It just needs a bit of time, and maybe this trunk practice. I know that is helping, and even if I'm doing it after a minute I don't feel better, after 2 minutes I don't feel better, but I'm not impatient, or I don't think, okay, that's enough, I tried it, it's not working, but I keep on going. Just like the pulp of apple juice, as Thay says, when you stir natural apple juice and you have the pulp swirling, you just sit in front and watch it becoming slower and slower, and finally the pulp settling in the cup, in the clear glass, and you can look through again. And I want to reflect. Reflect means better reflect, like a mirror. And that means that even if I'm tempted to project the cause of my suffering to the person, to that situation, outside of me, and blaming, judging them for me feeling bad, I want to reflect inwards and bring this attention inwards and saying, this is the seed watered in myself that I have allowed in. And I opened my gate. How do you call doors in these ships like these? Like in ships or submarines you have these big doors with wheels that you can lock. Like if they are all open and let the water in. So I want to make sure that I know that it was me who opened these doors, and it was not your fault that I feel so bad. And that takes away a lot of anger already, at least for the other person. Maybe now this anger is directed at myself and say, how could you again? You did it again. But that already helps. A little bit of settling, reflecting, owning, and bringing attention inwards. Like a little bit like Thay putting himself in front of the fireplace, coming inside. Now we want to observe. Observe what is happening. And again, this is probably the most difficult part. Just to be there and look, just to be the mother cradling this crying baby, not knowing what to do. And if this will ever end. And just being there before we go a step further and look deeply. Just to be there. To give you another image of how we can practice there, and to stick with the metaphors of wild cats, I want to introduce the lion mind. So we have the tiger, the strong emotion, and here comes the lion. Maybe you want to close your eyes again. I'll tell you a little story. Imagine, put yourself into a room and you have a dog sitting in front of you. And imagine you having a big bone in your hand. So now, when you look at the dog, where is the dog looking at? The dog is probably shaking his tail, wiggling his tail, and looking at the bone. Now if you move the bone to the left slowly and to the right, do you see it? Do you see the dog following the bone? Of course the dog will follow the bone with his head, like maybe his mouth waters up already a little bit. And now you take the bone and you throw it in one corner of the room. What will the dog do? The dog will run after the bone, take it, wiggle, and start to eat it. Keep your eyes closed. Now same room, for whatever weird reason, now a lion is sitting in front of you. And you having this big bone in your hand. You know it. So maybe the lion is looking at the bone or looking at you. And you said it worked with a dog, it will work with a lion. And you bring the bone to the left and to the right. And now look in your mind. Is the lion like following the bone? Like the dog did? I see in your reaction he doesn't, right? Why should he follow the bone in your hand when he has a bag full of bones right in front of him? Right? And then when you take that bone and you throw it in the corner of the room, does he run after it and like wiggle his tail and eat it? I don't think so. So this is the practice I use in that situation when everything becomes overwhelming and the tiger is threatening me. I say, hold on, tiger. I have an ace of spade here. That's the lion card. I can be a lion. I can be just observing. And when I have that image of the dog and the lion, and I see how easy I'm always a dog, but also how easy I can be the lion who is just observing. Because I can practice being in my trunk, and I would just want to know what happens. And if I want to successfully recognize the cause of that suffering, it helps if I observe it calmly. And the lion brings me in that position to just observe what what is this person doing there with that bone, like, you know? And he's just trying to understand you, while you're trying to tease the lion, but he doesn't allow you to tease you. Reflect. What is the next one? Settling, reflecting, observing, relaxing. That's what I do. Having the tiger like being checked by the lion, I can relax with what is happening. You know, I see and observe what is happening, and I see it, and it is enough. So I can say, okay, now I know. And when I'm able to relax, I'm not tight, and I don't know what to do, and I'm on the brink to explode, I'm able to let go of it. Let go of it. Let go of what is unsettling. But that also is a big word, so at least not hold on to. At least I know there is a way out. I have faith there is a way out. I don't need to be in that position, even if I'm not capable right now, but at least I'm relaxed and I was able to observe it. And when I'm here, either here, in this part, even here, or here, or here, I can go back to Thay's practice. Recognize it again, embrace it, look deeply, transform, and also letting go. That's how we take care of ourselves. That's how we guard our senses. And if all of this doesn't work, and you tried to recognize, to embrace, to go down and be a trunk, not the top of the tree, to transform and look deeply, you see it didn't work, and then you said, oh yeah, Brother Freedom said, if you don't make this, first settle, and that gives me a little space, so I go into a corner where I'm alone, I'm going into the mountains, and I find a solitude, and let it settle. I bring it in, I start owning it, I observe, then I relax, and you see it is not working, it is so strong, I'm not there. And it's not that your practice is weak, or this is just like the nature of that specific suffering, strong emotion. It's just maybe a new one you haven't encountered yet. You have to discover it, and you have to investigate it more, and each suffering is different, so there's no reason to blame. And if you see it's not working, I give you a third tool, a magic tool, and I want you to do that with me. It's a practice. So if you look at your hands, please bring up your hands. If you tilt it a little bit, you see one or two lines here, right below the palm, and here too. Now bring these two lines together, the first line under your palm, bring them together, like this, Gi. Yeah, you see the lines here? Like bring them together, exactly together, and then slowly close your palm and look at the tip of your fingers. You see that one hand is probably longer than the other hand. Keep your hands there. One hand is longer than the other. Maybe not, but it doesn't matter. So now take them off again. Take the shorter hand, bring it up, and bring all your attention and awareness to that hand. And now we want to say, my fingers are growing longer and longer and longer and longer. Say it to your fingers. Look at them and say, my fingers are growing longer and longer and longer and longer and longer. And now, bring these lines together again. And bring your hands together, and what happens? Isn't that cool? Now my left hand is longer than my right hand. It was the opposite before. Isn't that cool? And even if not, so even if they were the same, now the hand that you said grow longer is longer. And this practice might not help you to transform your suffering, but it distracts you a little bit, brings a little bit play into it, and you see the power of your mind, how strong you are, and that you are stronger than a tiger. Thank you, and enjoy practicing with your strong emotions. Now